Hi everyone, this is Koinzell here. So as promised, I will be doing the weapon comparison video. And this weapon comparison video, we will be comparing the Catch versus Engulfing Lightning, as well as Skyward Spine versus these two. If you can see here, Skyward Spine versus the Catch, Skyward Spine versus Engulfing Lightning. Likewise, Primordial Jade Wind Spear versus the two new weapons that we'll be getting in 2.1, and then Homa. Okay, so this. First off, let me just quickly say that the R1 Engulfing is 27% better than the R5, the Catch, while R5 Engulfing is 58% better than R5 of the Catch. And these are the percentage figures and the damage figures. So when we say 27.4%, we are talking about this figure versus this figure. 82k versus 64.5k is 27.4% better. 101k or rather 102k versus 64.5k is 58% better. This is the R5 Engulfing, and this is the R5 the Catch. I did not factor in the R1 Catch figures because the Catch is a fully F2P weapon. It's not an event weapon, but let's just say that if you know where to click on a certain website, you will know how to find the source of the Catch, and I'll just say that it's related to fishing, obviously, right, because it's the Catch. So anywho, this is the damage figures as well as the difference. Okay, now let's talk about the new weapons. 5-star weapon, Skyward Spine. So these are the Skyward Spine damage figures. The first column will always be the percentage difference versus the Catch. The second column will always be percentage difference versus Engulfing. Obviously, the first column is the actual damage figures itself. Now for Skyward Spine itself, it actually pretty much no difference from the Catch. It's only a 0.23% difference where the Catch is actually slightly better. So this is what you just saw. For the burst initial hit damage, Skyward Spine is pretty much the same as R5 to Catch. For the M4 1C combo during burst stance, meaning 4 normal attacks and 1 charge attack, Skyward Spine actually pulls ahead because of the Skyward proc. The R1 is 4% better, while R5 is 10% better. So R1 Skyward Spine is 4% better than the R5 the Catch. R5 is 10% better than R5 the Catch. Not that big of a difference, but important note, 12% attack speed buff from Skyward Spine is not factored in yet. If you saw my previous video talking about the 5-star weapons, these 3 5-star weapons, I already explained why there's no reliable way to calculate it pre-release. I can make some assumptions, but I don't think it's fair. But just bear in mind that there's still a 12% attack speed buff that will help buff the damage, so the percentage difference may be better than this. The percentage difference may be better than what you see here, which is the 4% and the 10%. Let's just talk about 4%, because how many people really do have R5 Skyward Spine, right? So 4%. Okay, we are talking about 80k. Sorry, we are talking about 66k versus 63k. This is Skyward, this is the Catch. And honestly speaking, the only reason why this is slightly higher than this is because of the Skyward procs. The proc effect where it does a AoE damage. So that's it. Now, you also notice one thing, which is that as the burst level increases, the difference is smaller because Skyward Spine proc does not scale with your burst level, which is expected, right? It doesn't scale with your burst level at all. So obviously, when I go get my burst level all the way up to say 13 or 10, you'll see the difference getting smaller and smaller, from 4% to 3.78 down to 2%, and even smaller at 1.93% at level 13, which is completely to be expected, so that's fine. Now let's talk about the final summary about Skyward Spine itself. What I think, in my opinion, I feel that Skyward Spine will perform better for Bell, since Bell can reliably do the procs. It's a better damage with Skyward procs, and Bell is better suited to use Skyward Spine, as she can make good use of the procs. So you are better off building the catch for other sub DPS characters like Rosaria or Xianling, where after casting their burst, you are not going to stay on the field to use the normal attacks and proc the Skyward effect. You're going to just cast and forget, or rather cast and switch out to another character. So if that's the case, right, even if you are right now, if you are using Skyward Spine on say Rosaria or on Xianling, it's a good idea, if you're not going to pull for Engulfing, it's a good idea to give Skyward Spine to Bell, and once you get the catch in-game, you can then build the catch for them to use instead. I mean, it's obviously Skyward Spine does do better damage because of the procs and also because of the 12% attack speed, but the main reason why I would let Belle use the Skyward Spine is because she can make good use of the procs. Whereas if you just give her Skyward Spine to Rosaria or Xianling, you won't be doing the procs, because if you build them as a sub DPS, that's exactly what they do. They come in, you switch them in, they cast their stuff, and then they switch out. That's it. They are not designed to stay on the field to hit, unlike Belle, who after using her burst, she should stay on the field for another 6 to 7 seconds, just spamming her Electro M4 1C combo. Okay? So that is how I will conclude for Skyward Spine. Now, or rather that's how I will conclude for Skyward Spine versus the catch. Now let's talk about Skyward Spine versus Engulfing Lightning. So for the burst initial hit damage, R1 Engulfing is 27 better, R5 Engulfing is 58% better. Do you notice that it's the same as the catch statement? Which makes sense, because between the two of them, there are pretty much no difference for the burst initial damage. For M4 1C during burst stance, you'll see that R1 Engulfing is still better, just that the percentage is dropped slightly. So it's 22% better at R1, 43% better at R5. Again, let me remind you guys that I have not factored in the 12% attack speed buff from Skyward Spine. Okay, I didn't want to make any assumptions, so I've not factored it in. If you factor it in, it should be better, but it's slightly not going to be groundbreakingly better. Okay, so we're done with Skyward Spine. These are the figures. Let me just pause it, or rather, let me just give you guys time to pause the video in case you want to compare for yourself how the figures look like. Yeah, in fact I should say that it's 44%. No, sorry. It is 43% at level 9, but as burst level increases, Engulfing gets even better because Engulfing skills better than Skyward. Okay, Engulfing skills better than Skyward. And this statement is incorrect. Skills better than Skyward. Although it skills better from this. Okay, although it also skills better than Skyward from R1 to R5. But basically, we are saying that as the burst level increases, your Engulfing will skill better. So 25% and 50% versus the 22 and 43. This is for the M4 1C. Okay, so this is for Skyward Spine versus Engulfing Lightning. Now we finished talking about the first 5-star weapon. Now let's talk about the second 5-star weapon, which is Primordial Jetwind Spear. So first off, let me show the Primordial Jetwind Spear. It's a very long stretch, because I need to talk about what is a realistic Primordial Jetwind Spear. So what does realistic Primordial Jetwind Spear mean? Okay, so if you see here, I have a 200 ER Primordial Jetwind Spear with no stats, 200 ER Primordial Jetwind Spear with max stats, maximum number of stats on the Primordial Weapon effect, which is the 7 stats of attack buff. And then we have the realistic Primordial Jetwind Spear. Why do I call this realistic? So this is the one where, for burst, we take it that there is no stats. There are no stats at all. We take it that you're going to swap Bell in, you're going to cast burst, and then you're going to start attacking. You're not going to attack with physical pole arm attacks before using her burst. It doesn't make sense. It's just a DPS loss in my opinion. Take for example, are you going to use when you use Primordial Wind Spear on Xiao, are you going to use normal attacks to get the max stats before you use his burst and then start doing the plunging? No, right? So for Bell, kinda the same thing here, where in terms of the realistic calculation or assumption or extrapolation, I'm going to take it that there is no attack buffs at all when we are talking about the burst initial hit. And when it comes to the M41C, you see here that this is the max stats attack, this is the one without any attacks. So pretty nice, right? 133k versus the R5 to catch 102k at C2. At C1, at C0, R1 is 73k versus the catch 63k. Still very nice, but it's not realistic. Why? Because you're not going to get your max stats the moment you go into your burst stance sword mode. So how I calculated the realistic figure is I take the max stats and multiply it by a 40%, the buff from the max stats, multiply it by a 40% and add it on to this figure here. Why 40%? Why not 50%? Because, like I said, if you're going to be spamming Belle's attacks in her burst stance using her sword, Booba sword, realistically, you're only going to get the 7 stats on the second hit of her M4 1C combo on the second combo within the 6 seconds. I already explained this in the previous video. Because there's 2 hits, there are 2 attacks within the M4 1C that are double hits. Those double hits are not going to give you the stack because there is a cooldown of 0.3 seconds before you can get each stack. So once the double hits happen together, they are only going to give you 1 stack, not 2. So that's why it's only the second attack of her second M4 1C combo on Primordial Wind Spear, then will you get the 7th stack. What this means is that you're only left with 3 hits, or rather 3 attacks with 5 hits for her with max stats. So basically, this is the reason why I just extrapolated a 40% figure. I can do the exact calculation for PJWS, but it's way too tedious. Like I mentioned in the previous video, it basically changes my formula from 1.5 lines or 1 line to like 10 lines. That's how long it drags and makes the formula. Because you have to account for every single hit. So yeah, not for the sake of my sanity, I'm not doing that. I'm just doing it 40% as an extrapolation, and this is what the realistic PJWS figures will look like. You'll notice that at C0R1, it's still better than the catch, but not by much. And how much is it better? So see here, it's 6% better and 12% better on R5. So that is our summary. Okay, you know what? Let me just hide the Skyward Spine figure so it's easier for us to traverse. Yeah, okay. So let's go to this. So pretty much the realistic PJWS is pretty much the same as R5 to catch. Why? Because we are assuming 0 stacks. Okay. And in terms of my crit rate, crit damage, and attack percent, etc., all of this is factored in to have the crit rate and crit damage consistent, while the attack is also pretty consistent in terms of the number of attack that you get from artifact rolls as well. Now, I was saying just now, for M4 1C during the burst stance, realistic R1P PJWS is 6% better, R5 is 12% better than R5 to catch. So, how I would see the PJWS, how I will conclude is that if you have other PO1 users who can make better use of PJWS as a main DPS, it would be more optimal to use the catch from Belle instead, because of the fact that you can't really get her max stats, or rather you can't get her max stats before casting a burst without wasting DPS, without having a loss in DPS, because the stacks also only last for 6 seconds. So even after you finish your burst, by the time you switch to other characters and by the time Belle's burst is ready, you're not gonna get the stats again. You basically need to your stats are all gone, you need to accumulate them. So that's not that great. But obviously, if you want more damage for Bell, PJWS will still do more damage than the catch because of the M41C being 6% and 12% better in my realistic extrapolation. But to me, I feel like it's a waste. You should use that PJW on starter character like say Xiao, and if you don't have Xiao, maybe some other character where they really do their polearm attacks. Example, DPS Zhongli. But DPS Zhongli will use Crescent Pipe, so yeah. But basically, if you have a polearm main DPS character, it still feels much better to use PJWS on them and use the catch on Bell. But if you're a purist and you love your Bell so much, you're chasing that damage figure, then PJWS will definitely still do better than the catch. So player's choice. This here is more like about optimizing the usage of the weapon, and not about the weapon DPS. You know, talk about weapon DPS, PJWS is definitely better than the catch. Sorry, I almost said Engulfing Lightning by mistake. Yeah, so these are the figures for the realistic PJWS. In fact, at C3R5 it's not too bad. It's 144k versus the catch at 127. But it's R5. If you already have an R5 PJWS, if you're a player who already have an R5 PJWS, I don't think you would mind spending on R5 Engulfing. But I might be wrong, Or maybe you have decided you want to cut back on spending. Then yes, this is the option where you can give to your Bell and it will still do better than the catch. About 13% better. At level 13. Okay. But if it's just normal crown, okay, I should say normal crown, C0 crown is 12.39% better. Okay. So that's how I will approach the PJWS versus the catch. Next, we have PJWS versus Engulfing Lightning, which is a signature weapon. So I already explained what a realistic PJWS means, but in case there are people who skip to this section itself without watching the first section, I'll just quickly say again. Realistic PJWS takes into account the fact that you don't have max stats at the very start when you're casting your burst. When you're using Bell and you cast your burst, and it takes time to accumulate stats. So it has already factored in it has lowered the damage that you can deal by realistically trying to extrapolate how much of the damage you actually get from getting buffed. Okay. So for the burst initial hit damage, R1 Engulfing is 27% better, R5 is 58% better, which is expected. This is pretty much the same as the catch. Why? Because I'm assuming that there's 0 stats at the initial burst hit damage. For M41C during the burst stance, R1 Engulfing is 20% better, R5 is 40% better. So it's only 20% better and 40% better. Skyward Spine is actually better. Oh, sorry. Skyward Spine is... Oh, what this means is that PJWS is slightly better than Skyward Spine. Because on Skyward Spine, it's 22 and 43, where how much better Engulfing is versus Skyward Spine. And this figure is lower when we are comparing R1 Engulfing and R5 Engulfing versus R1 PJWS and R5 PJWS. So 20% and 40%. Now, the thing about PJWS is I wanted to do a, should I say, weapon power creep view, where at max stats, R5, if I don't even say realistic, I say just full max stats, the R5 PJWS is only 3% better than R1 Engulfing, but this is specifically for Bell, right? Bell is the only character who can really benefit from this weapon. The rest of the characters, not so much. You'll still be better off with PJWS, I believe. I've not crunched the figures, but I believe so. After all, Bell is the only character that gets so much damage and DPS from ER. So this is the one that I'm talking about, the 3% figure. Basically, we are comparing this versus this. Likewise, this versus this. So it's always the C0R1 Engulfing versus C0R5 PJWS. The difference is 3%. PJWS is slightly better by 3%. Oh wait, sorry, I should be writing these met stats. Okay, sorry. Met stats. Okay, so 83k versus 80k. And this 3.11% here is the 84.7k versus 82.1k. Okay, so PJWS is only 3% better. The R5 PJWS is only 3% better than Engulfing for Bell. But this is also because Bell's kit is very special. Yeah, so that's why the power creep factor is so huge. And if I compare R5 to R5, the R5, if I compare R5 realistic PJWS versus R1 Engulfing, it's even worse. The R1 Engulfing is 27.67% better than the R5 PJWS if you use the realistic extrapolation. So we're talking about 27.6% better. So if you love PJWS, I even gave you a max stats comparison. This is not going to happen until late into her burst stance. 3.11%, only 3.11% better. And this 27.67% is R1 Engulfing being better than the R5 realistic PJWS. So yeah, but like I said, let me repeat again, it's because of Bell's kit that the Engulfing Lightning is so great. If you put Engulfing Lightning on any other character, it wouldn't do as well. It wouldn't power creep PJWS by so much. Right, so anyway, that ends my portion about PJWS, both versus the catch as well as Engulfing Lightning. Now let's talk about Homa, Staff of Homa. So Staff of Homa versus the catch and versus Engulfing Lightning. So first off, versus the catch. So we got all these damage figures for Staff of Homa here. You'll see that it's doing pretty well. This first column is when the less than 50% HP effect is not active, meaning you have more than 50% HP. This second column is when you have less than 50% HP. Okay, and you can see the damage comparison. Yeah, you have a okay. Let's talk about the catch first. So we're talking about for this percentage difference figure, I'm using the less than 50% HP effect because it's really not difficult to maintain the less than 50% HP effect. But I'll talk about the conditions to do that. So Staff of Homa versus R1 Staff of Homa versus R5 catch. It is a 21.20% difference, meaning Homa is 21% better than the catch, provided the HP more than less than 50% effect is active. By the way, guys, whenever I talk about all these percentage figures, when you go from C0 to C1 and you compare likewise the other weapon when you go from C0 to C1, the percentage actually remains the same. Okay, that's the reason why I did not put the percentages here. If you see something like this, it means that these two are also 27.4, these two are also 58%. I just didn't want to populate because it will make the table look too crowded. But it maintains. Okay. Now the point I was talking about, which is about the Homa versus the catch. So it's very, very straightforward. R1 Homa is 21% better, R5 Homa is 42% better. So you notice right off the bat, Homa is actually very, very close to Engulfing for Bell. And it's definitely much better than PJWS as well as Skyward Spine. And just to reiterate, this calculation for the Homa figures did not assume, it actually assumes 0 HP gain from artifact substats. Okay, 0, which is not the case because most of the time you end up getting a few HP percentage and flat HP here and there. So Homa will actually do even better in that type of scenario. Right now I'm already assuming that there is 0 HP gain It's a non-HP build, it's pure attack focus, or rather pure CRCDER focus. Attack just a little bit, but not much in my calculations. Okay, so this is a simple conclusion for Homa, very straightforward. Now, I've always been looking at the level 9 burst figures because I find that that's more realistic for most folks. But the level 10 figures are here. Okay, level 10 burst initial hit, level burst 10 burst M41C, and then you have the level 12 figures. Burst initial hit, level the burst M41C, burst initial hit, burst M41C. I personally will get my Belle's burst to level 13 for sure. For sure, I will crown her. I'll get C3 at least, because I like her, and her key is good. Her C2 in particular is crazy good. Okay, so that is for stuff of Homa versus the catch. We have figures here 21 and 42. So how about Homa versus Engulfing Lightning? So R1 Engulfing is 5% better than R1 Homa. R5 Engulfing is 11% better than R5 Homa. Okay, because R1 to R5 Engulfing, the effect skills much better for Belle. And like I mentioned earlier, Homa stats are assuming no HP percentage of flat HP from artifacts. Now, one thing to say is that if you have Homa, but you're not going to use it on Hu Tao or Zhongli for some reason, maybe you're sick of them, or maybe the particular comp that you want to try right now has no space for them, and you can pass your Homa to Belle. Homa is actually a very good DPS option for Belle, thanks to the attack that it gives from the HP buff for the HP effect, as well as the crit damage bonus. I mean, 66.2% crit damage, that's like Thundering Pulse. So this is really good. Homa itself is really good. But if you do have Homa and you're not going to use it on... But it's only if you do have Homa and not going to use it on Hu Tao only. The only scenarios I can think of is in Spiral Abyss, where you have some other Pyro DPS that you want to bring instead of Hu Tao, then you can switch. Or for some reason you don't intend to bring Zhongli, your comp doesn't have space for Zhongli, then yeah, that's another option. Or any other shielder really like Diona. But important to note is that to keep the less than 50% HP buff active while still not having too little HP, a strong shielder like Zhongli is highly recommended in the team. Which is quite straightforward, quite obvious, right? I mean, although Belle has increased in the resistance in interruption during her burst, she's not immune to damage. And if there are no HP percentage or flat HP from artifacts, just a plus 20 flower gives you 3571 flat HP. The Homa itself also gives a HP percentage. I've actually calculated it. The HP that you get at R1 Homa without R1 Homa is 19.5k HP, which means in order to get the less than 50% effect, you will have less than 10k HP. So it's actually very, very dangerous, I'll say. So yeah, you can keep the less than 50% HP buff safely if you have a strong shoulder like Zhongli. Otherwise, Homa, it will not be less than 50%, it will be more than 50%. But honestly, more than 50% HP is not so bad because it's still higher than the catch. 82 versus 71k, it will make it better by about say 11%. Homa, even with the HP more than 50% effect, will still be better than say Primordial Jade Spear with the realistic figure. Okay, let me try to show this. So we are talking about 64k versus 71k. Assuming you don't intend to keep the less than 50% HP effect active. It only does slightly worse than the max stats. And like I say, the max stats you don't get the max stats. You only get the max stats until the second part of your burst, really. Second half of your burst stunts. Not that reliable. So Homa is definitely the second best option based on this weapon comparison here. The next will be PJWS, then Skyward Spine. But although between the catch, Skyward Spine and PJWS, the difference is not that great as it slowly improves. Homa is the one that has a bit difference against these 3 weapons. But Engulfing will still be stronger than Homa. 5% better at R1, 11% at R5. What this means is R5 Engulfing versus R5 Homa. Engulfing is 11% better. Okay, so that ends my weapon comparison. You see the reason why I did this as a separate video. This is a half-hour video because I got so much to talk about. Okay, so anyway, I hope the video has been helpful to you guys. If you like the content, remember like the video and click subscribe for more. And I'll just show the summary points here again, so that in case you missed it, you can pause it anytime you want. It's like a TLDR. Okay. Okay, thanks everyone for watching. Bye.